Hi guys. How's it? I hope all is well. I had so much fun reading from the Pilgrim at Tinker Creek yesterday that this is usually my time of the afternoon or the evening that I go and read because I really don't have any place to be necessarily after work here in Ventura. All I have to do is to go to my Airbnb because I'm separated from my family right now during the week, Monday through Friday. I go home on the weekends. So usually I go to a restaurant, usually the Nature's Cafe, and I have a bowl of chili, and I read my book, and I'll have a beer, but just one, and enjoy the time. And then I'll meander around. It's quite nice. I enjoy it. And so last night I read my book, and I thought I would do the same again today. I'm starting a new chapter, so I'll go ahead and read it, and I'll share it with you. It seems like there's some folks out there that kind of like that kind of thing. So this is a new chapter with the called Hello, Hello, Hello. Someone said hello. I should bring this closer so I can read read who that is. It's Ron. Hey Ron, how you doing? Still up, eh? Or let's see, what time would it be in Israel right now? What time is it in Israel? Oh, speaking of Israel, so I was going to say it's an auspicious title. 3 a.m. Yeah, you just got off work, right? So yeah. So this is Pilgrim at Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard. Fantastic book. Yep, yes, yeah, I'm learning your rhythms, Ron. And the horns of the altar. So I'm going to, Ron, so given that you're in Israel, can you be the one to tell me what is the reference there, the horns of the altar? I wonder if that's meaningful to you. It's very topical and regional. Do 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 do. You got the Jeopardy talk clock going. Okay. Never mind if it doesn't ring a bell. It wouldn't have rung a bell to me either if I hadn't been for my Bible study and not the Bible itself. I don't recall anywhere in the Old Testament or the Torah or the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, where the horns of the altar are mentioned. But I did read a book called "Did God Have a Wife?" and it talks about the there you go. Ron's got it now, and it talks about the proto-Israel, not the proto-Israelites, but the Canaanites, basically. You just made me remember. You remember now. Yeah, the horns of the altar, right? So remember the Canaanites would have their pagan altars, right, where they were worshiping Baal and El, the we in the early Bible's references of we shall make man. I think that's what it was, because they were polytheists, and they had the altars, the stone altars, and they would have the altar horns, right? So Annie Dillard does a lot of references to the Bible in her book. At this point in her life, she was a Christian when she wrote this. She was 29, I think, when she received the Nobel Prize. If you look at her website now and it describes her religion, her religion is none. So I wonder what that signifies. Anyway, let's read the horns of the altar, which is one of the last chapters of the book. The horns of the altar. Remember, Annie, 4 horns, one at each corner, exactly right. You can find, Ron pointed out that there are a horn on each side. So if you find a photograph of these altar stones, you'll find that they kind of turn up on all 4 corners. So Ms. Dillard writes about her impressions. These are some short essays, very much in the spirit of Thoreau, of her experience in the meadows and the creek around her home, a place called Tinker Creek. Here we go, the horns of the altar. There was a snake at the quarry with me tonight. It lay shaded by cliffs on a flat sandstone ledge above the quarry's dark waters. I was 30 feet away, sitting on the forest path overlooking, when my eye caught the dark scrawl on the rocks, the lazy sinuosity that can only mean snake. Oh, what language! The lazy sinuosity that can only mean snake. I approached for a better look, edging my way down the steep rock cutting, and saw that the snake was only 12 or 13 inches long. Its body was thick for its length. I came closer still and saw the unmistakable undulating bands of brown, the hourglasses, copperhead. I never step a foot out of the house, even in winter, without a snakebite kit in my pocket. Mine is a small kit in rubber casing about the size of a shotgun shell. I remember those from the 70s. You could get those little shotgun shell sized snakebite kits with a little razor in there, and you could use the plastic on it to suck the poison out. I don't think they really do that anymore. I slapped my pants instinctively to fix in my mind its location. Then I stomped hard on the ground a few times and sat down beside the snake. The young copperhead was motionless on its rock, although it lay in a loose sprawl. All I saw at first was a camouflage pattern of particolored splotches, confused by the rushing speckles of light in the weeds between us, and by the deep twisting and by the deep twilight dark of the quarry pond beyond the rock. Then suddenly the form of its head emerged from the confusion, burnished brown, triangular, blunt as a stone axe. Its head and the first 4 inches of its body resting on airy nothing an inch above the rock. I admired the snake. Its scales shone with newness, bright and buffed. Its body was perfect, whole and unblemished. I found it hard to believe it had not just been created on the spot, or hatched fresh from its mother. So unscathed and clean was its body, so unmarked by any passage. Such writing, such writing, just magnificence. Did it see me? I was only 4 feet away, seated on a weedy cliff behind the sandstone ledge. The snake was between me and the quarry pond. I waved an arm in its direction. Nothing moved. Its low forehead glare and lipless, reptile smirk revealed nothing. How could I tell where it was looking? What it was seeing? How could I tell where it was looking, what it was seeing? I squinted at its head, staring at those eyes like the glass eyes of a stuffed warbler, at those scales like shields canted and lapped just so, to frame an improbable, unfathomable face. I'm really beginning to see that snake, as in the way that this language describes it. Yes, I knew it. Yes, it knew I was there. There was something about its eyes, some alien alertness. What on earth must it be like to have scales on your face? All right then, Copperhead. I know you're here. You know I'm here. This is a big night. I dug my elbows into rough rock and dry soil and settled back on the hillside to begin the long business of waiting out a snake. The only other poisonous snake around here is the timber rattler, Crotholus horridus. Now I've got to call her out on the use of the word poison when indeed snakes are venomous, not poisonous. These grow up to 6 feet long in the mountains and as big as your thigh. I've never seen one in the wild. I don't know how many have seen me. I see copperheads, though, sunning in the dust, disappearing into rock cliff chinks, crossing dirt roads at twilight. Copperheads have no rattle, of course, and, at least in my experience, they do not give way. You walk around a copperhead if you see it. Copperheads are not big enough or venomous enough to kill adult humans readily. There, she got the word right. But who am I to call Annie Dillard out on vocabulary? Oh my gosh. Ugh. Copperheads are not big enough or venomous enough to kill adult humans readily, but they do account for far and away the greatest number of poisonous snake bites. Now we're back on poison. Poisonous snake bites in North America. There are so many of them, and people in the eastern woodlands. It always interests me when I read about new studies being done on pit vipers. The team of herpetologists always seem to pick my neck of the woods for its fieldwork. I infer that we have got poisonous snakes as East Africa has zebras or the tropics have orchids. They are our specialty, our stock in trade. So I try to keep my eyes open, but I don't worry. You have to live pretty far out to be more than a day from a hospital. and worrying about getting it in the face from a timber rattler is like worrying about being struck by a meteorite. Life's too short. Anyway, perhaps the actual bite is painless. Now, that idea of getting bit in the face and being more than a day away from society strikes home to me. I remember when I was about your age, Ron, hiking in the California desert long before iPhones, I think even before computers, way out in the middle of nowhere, climbing a cliff, or kind of like not really a cliff, but it was a rock wall, hand over hand, all alone, way out in the desert. And I remember I reached up and grabbed a big hunk of rock, pulled myself up to a ledge, and my head came over the ledge like this, and there, right in front of me, coiled in a strike position, was a big rattlesnake with its face no more than 6 inches away from me. Still can't believe it didn't strike me. And that would have been a very precarious, that would have been the end of me, because I was, 6-7 hours from help by healthy climbing without a trail, without a car, without any beacon, nothing. That could have been my death. Yeah, Ron, that really was. So here she is referencing, the unlikelihood of being a day away and having a pit viper bite you in the face. So almost been there, almost done that. One day, I was talking about snakes to Mrs. Mildred Sink, who operates a switchboard. A large pane separated us, and we were talking through a circular hole in the glass. She was seated in a dark room, little bigger than a booth. As we talked, red lights on her desk would flash. She would glance at them, then back at me, and, finishing her point with careful calmness, she would fix on me a long, significant look to hold my attention, while her hand expertly sought the button and pushed it. In this way, she handled incoming calls and told me her snake story. When she was a girl, she lived in the country just north of here. She had a brother 4 years old. One bright summer day, her brother and her mother were sitting quietly in the big room of the log cabin. Her mother had her sewing in her lap and was bent over in concentration. The little boy was playing with wooden blocks on the floor. "Ma," he said, "I saw a snake." "Where?" "Down by the spring." The woman stitched the hem of a cotton dress, gathering the material with her needle and drawing it smooth with her hand. The little boy piled his blocks carefully, this way and that. After a while he said, "Ma, it's too dark in here. I can't see." She looked up, and the boy's leg was swollen up as big around as his body. Mrs. Sink nodded at me emphatically, and then heeded the flashing light on the panel before her. She turned away. This caller was taking time. I waved and caught her eye. She waved, and I left. Good storytelling there. The copperhead in front of me was motionless. Its head still hung in the air above the sandstone rock. I thought of poking at it with a weed, but rejected the notion. Still, I wished it would do something. Marston Bates tells me about an English ecologist, Charles Elton, who said, with his Britishness fully unfurled, "All cold-blooded animals spend an unexpectedly large proportion of their time doing nothing at all, or at any rate, nothing in particular." That is precisely what this one was doing. That's my best English accent. I noticed its tail. It tapered to nothingness. Wow. I started back at the head. I started back at the head and slid my eye down its body slowly. Taper, taper, taper. Scales, tiny scales. Air. Suddenly the copperhead's tail seemed to be the most remarkable thing I had ever seen. I wished I tapered like that somewhere. What if I were a shaped balloon blown up through the tip of a finger? Here was this blood-filled, alert creature, this nerved rope of matter, really here instead of not here, splayed soft and solid on a rock by the slimmest of chances. It was a thickening of the air spread from a tip, a rush into being, eyeball and blood, through a pinhole rent. Every other time I had ever seen this rock, it had been a flat sandstone rock over the quarry pond. Now it hosted and bore this chunk of fullness that parted the air around it like a driven wedge. I looked at it from the other direction. From tail to head, it spread like the lines of a crescendo, widening from stillness to a turgid blast. Then at the bulging jaws, it began contracting again, diminuendo, till at the tip of its snout, the lines met back at the infinite point that corners every angle, and that space once more ceased being a snake. Good God! How can someone write like that? Maybe there is a God after all. Snakes aren't an animal to underestimate. Indeed. And back to our biblical reference, the old serpent. But isn't it interesting that the serpent in the Bible wasn't he the one telling the truth? They didn't die when they ate of the fruit. I know, they died of their innocence died, but I don't know that that's not what God meant. Well, this wonder engaged me. Something happened that was so unusual and unexpected that I can scarcely believe I saw it. It was ridiculous. Hi, the sunflower's crooked totem brush. Yoker, yo you. Night had been rising like a ground vapor from the blackened quarry pool. I heard a mosquito sing in my ear. I waved it away. I was looking at the copperhead. The mosquito landed on my ankle. Again, I idly brushed it off. To my utter disbelief, it lighted on the copperhead. It squatted on the copperhead's back near its, quotation marks, neck, and bent its head to its task. I was riveted. I couldn't see the mosquito in great detail, but I could make out its lowered head that seemed to bore like a well drill through surface rock to fluid. Quickly, I looked around to see if I could find anyone. Any hunter going to practice shooting beer cans, any boy on a motorbike to whom I could show this remarkable sight while it lasted. How indeed a remarkable sight to see a mosquito going after a snake. The better to be drinking home today. Have a happy St. Paddy's Day. Oh, it is St. Paddy's Day. Happy St. Paddy's Day to you. To the best of my knowledge, it lasted 2 or 3 full minutes. It seemed like an hour. I could imagine the snake, like the frog, sucked dry by the giant water bug. She's referring there to a horrifying impression earlier in the book when she talks about a frog being sucked dry by a giant water bug. Rob says, the weather's getting nice. Good to see you again. Good to see you too, Rob. Well, it's been a while. But the snake never moved, never indicated any awareness. At last, the mosquito straightened itself, fumbled with its forelegs around its head like a fly, and sluggishly took to the air, where I lost it at once. I looked at the snake. I looked beyond the snake to the ragged chomp in the hillside where years before men had quarried stone. I rose, brushed myself off, and walked home. Is this what it's like, I thought then, and think now? A little blood here, a chomp there, and still we live, trampling the grass? Must everything whole be nibbled? Here was a new light on the intricate texture of things in the world, the actual plot of the present moment in time after the fall. The way we living are nibbled and nibbling, not held aloft on a cloud in the air, but bumbling, pitted and scarred and broken through a frayed and beautiful land. Her writing melts me. Did you catch that other Bible reference there too? When I reached home, I turned first to the bookshelf to see if I could possibly have seen what I thought I had. All I could find was this sentence in Will Barker's book, Familiar Insects of North America. The bite of the female mosquito, Culex pipienus, is effected with a little drill that can puncture many types of body covering, even the leathery skin of a frog or the overlapping scales of a snake. Wow, they can do that? All right then, maybe I had seen it. Anything can happen in any direction. The world is more chomped than I dreamed. In some way, I'm getting the chills from her writing. Ron, on one of her reviewers described her as perhaps America's premier horror writer, even though that's not what she's aiming to do. And she was delighted. I was reading her biography. She was delighted that she would be described in such a way. And I agree. Her book is just rife with these nearly horrifying images. But they're beautiful at the same time. It's nature. She has a whole section where she talks about how is it the squeamishness of humans, an honor, yeah, the squeamishness of humans, and how that nature seems to have no such squeamishness. It's all about utility. People struggle to write like that. People do. That's why I wondered if she. I mean, I read this stuff and I'm like, oh man, I'm never gonna pick up pen to paper again. I mean, she just blows the curve, right? I mean, why bother? Why bother writing when there's people writing like this? I mean, how? But still, in the words of Emerson, I mean, we each have our writing. You know, if we can find our muse. It is mid-September now. I can see in the fading light the jagged holes in the leaves of the mock orange hedge outside my study window. Wow. The more closely I look, the more I doubt that there is a single whole unblemished leaf left on the bush. I go out again and examine the leaves one by one. First of the mock orange outside my study, then of the cherry tree in the yard. In the blue light, I see scratched and peeled stems, leaves that are half-eaten, rusted, blighted, blistered, mined, snipped, smutted, spitted, puffed, sawed, bored, and rucked. Where have I been all summer while the world has been eaten? I remember something else I saw this week. I passed on the road by the creek a small boy bearing aloft an enormous foot-long snapping turtle. The boy was carrying the turtle, which was stretched and snapping wildly in the air, at arm's length. And his arms must have been tired, for he asked me plaintively, "Do you have a box?" When I was on foot myself and quite clearly did not have a box. That sounds like something Thoreau would write. I admired the turtle, but the boy was worried. "He's got bleachers," he said. "Bleachers. You know, they suck your blood." Oh, I had noticed the black leech drooping like a tar tear down the turtle's thick shell. The boy showed me another one, almost 2 inches long, fixed to the granular skin under the turtle's foreleg. Will they kill him?" the boy asked. "Will he live?" Many, if not most, of the wild turtles I see harbor leeches. I assured him that the turtle would live. For most creatures, being parasitized is a way of life, if you call that living. I think of the fox that Park Service Ranger Gene Parker told me about. The fox sprawled and naked and pink-skinned in a mountain field, unable to rise, dying of mange. I think of the swimming bluegill I saw at Lawson's upstream in Tinker Creek, on the other side of Tinker Mountain. One of its eyes was blinded by an overgrowth of white water mold, a white that spread halfway down its back in filmy lumps that soaked cotton batting, soaked cotton batting. It had been injured, perhaps when a fisherman had hooked it and tossed it back, perhaps when a flood dashed it on the rocks, and the fungus had spread from the injured site. I think of Lauren Isley's description of a scientist he met in the field, who was gleefully bearing a bloody jar, squirming with yard after yard of some unthinkable parasite he had just found in the belly of a rabbit. Suddenly, the lives of the parasites, some sort of hellish hagiography, come to mind. I remember the bloodworms and flukes, whose parasitic life cycles require the living bodies of as many as 4 hosts. How many of the grasshoppers that hurtled around me in the Lucas meadow bore inside their guts the immense coiled larvae of horsehair worms? I received once as a gift a small illustrated layman's guide to insect pests. These are insects that, for one reason or another, are in the way of human culture or economics. By no means all are parasites. Nevertheless, the book reads like the devil's Summa Theologia. The various insects themselves include cottony cushion scales, bean beetles, borers, weevils, bulb flies, thripes, cutworms, stink bugs, screwworms, sawflies, poultry lice, cheese skippers, cheese mites, cluster flies, pus caterpillars, itch mites, and long-tailed mealybugs. What a list. Of cockroaches, the book says, when very abundant, they may also eat human hair, skin, and nails. The key word, skin, is buried. The full-color pictures show warbled beef and fly-blown gashes, blighted trees and blasted corn, engorged ticks and seething ham, pus-eyed hogs, and the wormy nostrils of sheep. In another book, I learned that 10% of the world's species are parasitic insects. It is hard to believe. What if you were an inventor and you made 10% of your inventions in such a way that they could only work by harassing, disfiguring, or totally destroying the other 90%? These things are not well enough known. Yes, what of it? What of it to know that? What of it? What of it? There is, for instance, a species of louse for almost every species of everything else. In addition to sucking blood, lice may also eat hair, feathers, the dry scales of moths, and other lice. Bird banders report that wild birds are universally infested with lice, to each its own. Songbirds often squat in the dusk near anthills and spray themselves with a shower of living ants. It is thought that the fulmic acid in the ants discourages the presence of lice. Each species of auk has its own species of louse found in all individuals examined. The European cuckoo is the sole host to 3 species of lice, and the glossy ibis to 5, each specializing in eating a different part of the host's body. Lice live in the hollow quills of birds' feathers, in warthog bristles, in Antarctic seals' flippers, and pelican pouches. Fleas are almost as widely distributed as lice, but much more Catholic in their choice of hosts. What does that mean? Much more Catholic in their choice of hosts? Huh? They like Catholics? Is she making a statement about Catholicism? About the state of Catholic culture? I don't know. Immature fleas, interestingly, feed almost entirely on the feces of their parents and other adults, while mature fleas live on sucked blood. And I do want to comment, I believe that she is a Catholic herself at this point in her life. Parasitic 2-winged insects such as flies and mosquitoes abound. It is these that cause hippos to live in the mud and frenzied caribou to trample their young. 20,000 head of domestic livestock died in Europe from a host of black flies that swarmed from the banks of the Danube in 1923. Some parasitic flies live in the stomachs of horses, zebras, and elephants. Others live in the nostrils and eyes of frogs. Some feed on earthworms, snails, and slugs. Others attack and successfully pierce mosquitoes, already engorged on stolen blood. Still others live on such delicate fare as the brains of ants, the blood of nesting songbirds, or the fluid in the wings of lacewings and butterflies. It really is a cavalcade of horror. But horror from whose perspective? The lives of insects and their parasites are horribly entwined. The usual story is that the larva of the parasite eats the other insect alive in any of several stages and degrees of consciousness. It is above all the parasite Hymenoptera, which for the sake of simplicity I shall call wasps, that specialize in this behavior. Some species of wasps are so practiced as parasites that the female will etch a figure 8 design on the egg of another insect in which she has just laid her egg, as other wasps will avoid ovipositing on those marked already parasitized eggs. What? They mark so a female wasp that will implant her eggs in a parasitized insect will put a mark on it to discourage other wasps from doing the same? I didn't know that. There are over 100,000 species of parasitic wasps, so that although many life histories are known, many others are still mysterious. British entomologist R. Eskew says, "The field is wide open, the prospect inventing." What? The field is wide open, the prospect inviting. What does that mean? There are a lot of, although the many, the field of discovering the wasps. Yeah, right. So I get it. So become an entomologist. Name some wasps. The field may be wide open, but Although most of my favorite entomologists seem to revel in these creatures, the prospect is, to me at least, scarcely inviting. Consider the story of Edwin Way Teals. He bought a monarch butterfly caterpillar he brought a monarch butterfly caterpillar inside to photograph just as it was about to pupate. The pale green caterpillar had hung itself upside down from a leaf, as monarch caterpillars have done from time immemorial, in the form of a letter J. All that night it remained as it was. The next morning at 8 o'clock, this is quoting him, I noticed that the curve in the J had become shallower. Then suddenly, as though a cord within had been severed, the larva straightened out and hung limp. Its skin was baggy and lumpy. It began to heave as the lumps within pushed and pushed. At 9:30 a.m., the first of 6 white, fat-bodied grubs appeared through the skin of the caterpillar. Each was about 3/8 of an inch in length. This was the work of a parasitic wasp. There's a parasitic wasp that travels on any adult female praying mantis, feeding on her body wherever she goes. I didn't know that. When the mantis lays her eggs, the wasp lays hers inside the frothy mass of bubbles before it hardens, so that the early hatching wasp larvae emerge inside the case to eat the developing mantis eggs. What? I didn't know that. Others eat cockroach eggs, which cockroaches and mantises are closely related. Ticks, mites, and houseflies. Many seek out and lay eggs on the caterpillars of butterflies and moths. Sometimes they store paralyzed living caterpillars on which eggs have been laid in underground burrows where they stay fresh for as long as 9 months. Askew, who is apparently very alert, says, the mass of yellowish cocoons on the brachnoid Apelatus glumacus beneath the shriveled remains of a large white butterfly caterpillar are a familiar sight, so I guess they drop out. There are so many parasitic wasps that some parasitic wasps have parasitic wasps. What? One startled entomologist examining the gall made by a vegetarian oak gall wasp found parasitism of the 5th order. This means that he found the remains of an oak gall wasp, which had a parasitic wasp, which had another, which had another, which had another, which had another. If I counted it right. What, 5 layers deep? Good gosh. Other insect orders also include fascinating parasites. Among true bugs are bed bugs. Let's see if I can remember. True bugs are of the order Hemiptera. That's right. She talked about the order Hymenoptera a moment ago for wasps. I think Hemiptera is the order for true bugs. You can always tell a true bug because they have a little diamond shape on their back. Start that part again. Other insect orders also include fascinating parasites. Among true bugs are bed bugs, insects that parasitize dozens of species of bats, and those that parasitize bed bugs. Now, true bugs also are noteworthy because they have little pokers, right? So they come out and poke. That's how bed bugs eat. And then they suck out your blood. Parasitic beetles as larvae prey on other insects, and as adults on bees and kangaroos. There is a blind beetle that lives on beavers. The cone-nosed bug, or kissing bug, bites the lips of sleeping people, sucking blood and injecting an excruciating toxin. Do you stay asleep while it's doing that? There's an insect order that consists entirely of parasitic insects called, singly and collectively, Stylops, which is interesting because of the grotesqueness of its form and its effects. Stylops parasitizes diverse, she's using that word, not divers, but diverse as in its classical use of meaning many. She likes to do that sometimes. Stylops parasitize diverse other insects, such as leafhoppers, ants, bees, and wasps. The female spends her entire life inside the body of her host, with only the tip of her bean-shaped body protruding. She is a formless lump, having no wings, legs, eyes, or antennae. Her vestigial mouth and anus are tiny, degenerated, and non-functional. She absorbs food, her host, through the skin of her abdomen, which is inflated, white, and soft. That's like something out of a horror movie. It literally lives inside you with no recognizable body form or ingestion or excretion mechanism, and just lives in there. Ron, I'm glad you're enjoying this, Ron. Rob says, this science is much more interesting than the Bible book. Haha, although if I could actually go witness these events that inspired the Bible stories, that would be interesting too. Yeah, I agree. It is more interesting than the Bible, mainly because it's true. Although, yeah, maybe some of the events in the Bible were true too. I'm sure there's some history in there as well. But I would love to see a burning bush, or the burning bush, right? Um, okay. The sex life. Oh, sex life. Hi, Kurt. Oh, hi, Miss Mommy. The sex life of the stylops is equally degenerate. The female has a wide primitive orifice called a brood canal near her vestigial mouthparts, out in the open air. The male inserts his sperm into the brood canal, from whence it flows into her disorganized body and fertilizes the eggs where they are. Remember, she's talking about that insect that lives inside that disjointed thing. So there's a male that comes along and swoops his thing. Yeah, well, I'll say it twice. Hi, hi, Miss Mommy, 185. I think you are special, and I appreciate you dropping by, Miss Mommy. I really do. It means a lot. Welcome to the beach here in Ventura. Reading from Pilgrim at Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard. Great book. I'm reading the book, the Four-Horned Altar. That's the chapter. So we're talking now about the sex life of that little grubby thing that lives inside you with just its, you're blushing? Well, it's making me blush too. We're talking about that little animal there, and the male thing. Here we go, the sex life. The sex life of the stylops is equally degenerate. The female has a wide primitive orifice called a brood canal near her vestigial mouthparts, out in the open air. The male inserts his sperm into the brood canal, from whence it flows into her disorganized body, yes, disorganized, and fertilizes the eggs that are floating freely there. The hatched larvae find their way to the brood canal and emerge into the outside world. You've been watching me for years? Wow, thank you for softypapa. Did you use a different name? I don't recall Miss Mommy that name. Did you leave comments on YouTube by a different name? Maybe I might know you. Ron, for example, I've known Ron forever. And there's a couple, and Rob Card as well. I've known you forever too. And Adrian, hello Adrian, welcome. Doing a little reading. Okay, I think I went too far. Okay. Yeah, here we go. We're talking about that. The unfortunate insects on which the stylops feed, although the unfortunate insects on which the stylops feed, although they live normal lifespans, frequently undergo inexplicable changes. Their colors brighten, the gonads of the males and females are destroyed, and they not only lose their secondary sexual characteristics, they actually acquire those of the opposite sex. What? This happens especially to bees, in which the differences between the sexes are pronounced. A stylopsized insect, says Askew, may sometimes be described as an intersex. What the hell? It was a good content back then. Oh, yeah, thanks. What the hell? So this parasitic insect causes them to switch sex. Their host insects to switch sex. Why? Finally, completing this whirlwind survey of parasitic insects, there are, I was surprised to learn, certain parasitic moths, one moth caterpillar. Certain parasitic moths. One moth caterpillar occurs regularly in the horns of African ungulates. One adult winged moth lives on the skin secretions between the hairs of the fur of the three-fingered sloth. Another adult moth sucks mammal blood in Southeast Asia. Last of all, there are the many-eyed moths, which feed as winged adults about the open eyes of domestic cattle, sucking blood, pus, and tears. That could be like a 70s rock band. Blood, pus, and tears. Let me repeat that these parasitic insects comprise 10% of all known animal species. How can this be understood? Yes, inquiring minds want to know. Certainly, we give our infants the wrong idea about their fellow creatures in the world. Teddy bears should come with tiny stuffed bear lice. 10% of all baby bibs and rattlesoles should be adorned with colorful blowflies, maggots, and screw moths. What kind of devil's tithe do we pay? What percentage of the world's species that are not insects are parasitic? Could it be, counting bacteria and viruses, that we live in a world in which half the creatures are running from or limping from the other half? It does seem that way indeed, red in truth and claw, as they say. She's getting on to the Creator. The Creator is now remember, she's Christian at this point in her life. At age 29, and her brain has that much knowledge, damn smart. I learned a little bit about her. She spends all of her time in the library, just studying. She's just full of so many facts, but also pure genius, pure written genius. And here she is. The Creator is no Puritan. A creature need not work for a living. Creatures may simply steal and suck and be blessed for all that with a share, an enormous share, of the sunlight and air. There is something that profoundly fails to be exuberant about these crawling, translucent lice and white, fat-bodied grubs. But there's an almost manic exuberance about a creator who turns them out, creature after creature after creature, and sets them buzzing and lurking and flying and swimming about. These parasites are our companions at life, wending their dim, unfathomable ways into the tender tissues of their living hosts, searching, as we are, simply for food, for energy to grow and breed, to fly or creep on the planet, adding more shapes to the texture of intricacy and more life to the universal dance. See, isn't that the stuff? That's the shit right there. Sorry, foul language. Parasitism. Somebody needs brakes? Parasitism. This itch, this gasp in the lung, this coiled worm in the gut, hatching egg in the sinew, warbled hole in the hide, is a sort of rent paid by all creatures who live in the real world with us now. It is not an extortionary rent. Wouldn't you pay it? Don't you? A little blood from the throat. Let's try that again. That's just so good. With the squeaking, I think it was someone wanting a little attention. I should have given them some, right? Let's hear again. Parasitism. This itch, this gasp in the lung, this coiled worm in the gut, hatching egg in the sinew, warble hole in the hide, is a sort of rent paid by all creatures who live in the real world with us now. It is not an extraordinary rent. Wouldn't you pay it? Don't you? A little blood from the throat and wrists for the taste of air? Ask the turtle. True, for some creatures it is a slow death. For others, like the stelopsized bee, it is a strange, transfigured life. For most of us Western humans directly, it is a pinprick or scabrous itch here and there from a world we learned early could pinch and no surprise. Or is it the black burgeoning of disease, the dank baptismal lagoon into which we are dipped by blind chance many times over against our wishes, until one way or another we die? Chomp! It is the thorn in the flesh of the world, another sign, if any be needed, that the world is actual and fringed, pierced here and there, and through with the toothed conditions of time and the mysterious coil springs of death. I gotta underline that part. That whole paragraph gets it. Ooh, man. Yeah, whatever it is, that I call the great indifference, the emptiness that's out there, which is also just a fact of the nature of the universe. She seems to reflect that far earlier than I ever did. Outright predators, of course, I understand. Outright predators. I said it wrong. Outright predators, of course, I understand. I am among them. There's no denying that the feats of predators can be just as gruesome as those of the unlovely parasites. The swathing and sipping of trapped hummingbirds by barn spiders. Wait. Miss Mommy says, I don't see many of your videos in my feed lately, but somehow showed up and I had to click. Well, I'm glad you did. Yeah, bot flies are nasty. Yes, indeed. A PSA allowed parasites to keep doing their thing. Is this a PSA? And look at her now. Yeah. You want to look at her? Well, if you are curious, this is what she looks like. She's like in her 70s now. And you got to put the bell on. Yeah, no, I don't make too many videos these days, Miss Mommy, but hey, maybe I'll do this. Here we go. Let's try that part again. It gives you a notification every time he uploads. Oh, if you put the bell. Ding. That's right, the bell on YouTube. Outright predators, of course, I understand. I am among them. There's no denying that the feats of predators can be just as gruesome as those of the unlovely parasites. The swathing and sipping of trapped hummingbirds by barn spiders. The occasional killing and eating of monkeys by chimpanzees. If I were to eat as the delicate ladybug eats, I would go through in just 9 days the entire population of Boys Town. Nevertheless, the most rapacious lurk and charge of any predator is not nearly so sinister as the silent hatching of barely visible implanted eggs. With predators, at least, you have a chance. One night this summer, I had gone looking for muskrats and was waiting on the long pedestrian bridge over the widest part of the creek. No muskrat came, but a small event occurred in a spider's web strung from the lower rung of the bridge's handrail. As I watched, a tiny pale green insect flew directly into the spider's web. It jerked violently, bringing the spider charging. But the fragile insect, which was no larger than a fifth of the spider's abdomen, extricated itself from the gluey strands in a flurry, dropped in a dead fall to the hard bridge surface a foot below, stood, shook itself, and flew away. I felt as I felt on the way back from low bar pneumonia, stuffed with penicillin and taking a few steps outside. Vive la chance. Recently, I have been keeping an informal list of the ones that got away, of living creatures I have seen in various states of disarray. It started with spiders. I used to see a number of daddy longlegs or harvestmen in the summer, and I got in the idle habit of counting their legs. It didn't take me long to notice that hardly ever did an adult of any size cross my path was still hitting on all 8 cylinders. True that, they rarely do. Most had 7 legs, some had 6. Even in the house, I noticed that the larger spiders tended to be missing a leg or 2. Then last September, I was walking across a gravel path in full sunlight when I nearly stepped on a grasshopper. I poked its leg with a twig to see it hop, but no hop came. So I crouched down. I think we're headed for something horrible. So I crouched down low on my hands and knees, and sure enough, her swollen ovipositor was sunk into the gravel. She was pulsing faintly, with a movement not nearly so strange as the egg-laying mantis's was, and her right antenna was broken off nearly near the base. She'd been around. I thought of her in the Lucas Meadow, too, where so many grasshoppers leapt about me. One of those was very conspicuously lacking one of its big spring-like hind legs, a grass lunger. It seemed to move fairly well from here to there, but then, of course, I didn't know where it had been aiming. Good point. How can you tell if it's jumping well when you don't know where it's trying to go? Oh, did someone join us? Let's see. Wish I knew how to keep them up. Hello, Curtain Chat. Hi, Sam. Welcome. And I've been bathed. Streams are nice, too. Welcome to you, too. Good to have you here. Nature seems to... We're reading Pilgrim at Tinker Creek here at Ventura Beach, Surfers Point. Nature seems to catch you by the tail. I think of all the butterflies I have seen whose torn hind wings bore the jagged marks of birds' bills. There were 4 or 5 tiger swallowtails missing one of their tails, and a fritillary missing 2/3 of a hind wing. The birds, too, who make up the bulk of my list, always seem to have been snatched at from behind, except for the killdeer I saw just yesterday, who was missing all of its toes. Its slender shank ended in a smooth gray knob. Once I saw a swallowtail sparrow, who on second look proved to be a sparrow from whose tail the central wedge of feathers had been torn. I've seen a completely tailless sparrow, a tailless robin, and a tailless grackle. Then my prairie list ends with 1 bob-tailed and 1 tailless squirrel, and a muskrat kit whose tail bore a sizable nick near the spine. The testimony of experts bears out the same point. It's rough out there. Gerald Durrell, defending the caging of animals in well-kept zoos, says that the animals he collects from the wild are all either ridden with parasites, recovering from various wounds, or both. Howard Ensing Evans finds that butterflies in his neck of the woods are tattered as I do. A Southwest Virginia naturalist noted in his journal for April 1896, mourning cloaks are plentiful but broken, having lived through the winter. Trappers have a hard time finding unblemished skins. Cetologists photograph the scarred hides of living whales, striated with gashes as long as my body, and hilly with vast colonies of crustaceans called whale lice. Finally, Paul Sipple, the Antarctic explorer and scientist, writes of the Arctic crab-eater seal, which lives in the pack ice off the continent. One seldom finds a sleek, silvery adult crab-eater that does not bear ugly scars. or 2-foot-long parallel slashes on each side of its body, I bet at polar bears, received when it managed somehow to wriggle out of the jaws of a killer whale that had seized it. Ooh, a killer whale. Someone come? Oh, hi, Brittany. Welcome. Oh, you gotta run, Miss Mommy. It's good to see you. I think of those crab-eater seals in the jaws of the killer whales lined with teeth that are, according to Sipple, as large as bananas. How did they get away? How did not one or two, but most of them get away? Of course, any predator that decimates its prey will go hungry, as will any parasite that kills its host species. Predator and prey offenses and defenses, and fecundity is a defense, usually operate in such a way that both populations are fairly balanced, stable in the middle, as it were, and frayed and nibbled at the edges. Well put. Like the bitten apple that still bears its seeds. Well put. Healthy caribou can outrun a pack of wolves. The wolves cull the diseased, old, and injured, who stray behind the herd. All this goes without saying. But it is truly startling to realize how on the very slender bridge of chance some of the most efficient predators operate. Wolves literally starve to death in valleys teeming with game. How many crab-eater seals can one killer whale miss in a lifetime? Still, it is to the picture of the sleek, silvery crab-eater seals that I return. Seals drawn up by scientists from the Antarctic ice pack. Seals bearing again and again the long gnash marks of unthinkable teeth. Any way you look at it, from the point of view of the whale or the seal or the crab, from the point of view of the mosquito or copperhead or frog or dragonfly or minnow or rotifer, it is chomp or fast. Oh, I wish I hadn't messed that up right at the end. She said that. She wrote that so well. Look at the beautiful light. See if I can switch the camera around. I think I'll probably wrap up here. Some lovely light of evening. There's one surfer right there. I'm going to head out to the bridge and to the pier and have some dinner. Kurt doth quell anxiety again. Thanks, Mark. One yaba. You're very welcome. I'm glad. Actually, that's the reason I did this. Someone had left a comment yesterday that I made a video yesterday doing the same type of thing. It was kind of befuddled video. Fine. I don't do this much anymore, so I lose my knack. And someone mentioned that they felt relaxed. Yeah, you're welcome for the relief. I guess there's something about this humanity. Oh, it was you. Was you, Yaba? Well, yeah. I'm here. I'm back because of you, Yaba. And I think there was one other person with you that said something similar. And I'm glad you enjoyed that. Maybe I'll certainly carry on. I've only got this much of the book left. Oh, highly recommended. Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. I mean, this is a keeper for sure. I usually don't keep my books, but this is a keeper for sure. And so I'm sure I'll carry on, but maybe I'll just do this again with you guys. It's been kind of fun. Yeah, I think you said that too. Yeah, so I did this because of that. I was leaving work and I was going out for a walk, and I said, hey, why not? Why don't I just go sit at the beach and do this? And I'll just show you guys the end. We'll walk over to the water real quick, and I'll give you a view of what we're looking at, and then I'll sign off. So let's switch. Here's the little bench. Someone had a book there. I'll leave it there. Escape from the Bad Word. Well, there's a bad word. And those are the those mountains out there you see. Those are the Channel Islands. So there's actually it's like a mountain range out there. Obviously. Let's step off of this. And so that's just joking. Hi, Verity. Swim there. Haha. I do. Last week I was swimming down there. I would walk down to the end of the pier, past the pier, and then I brought my swimsuit after work, and I was swimming after work. But that island out there, that's called, I wonder if I can zoom in on it. That's called Anacapa. Yeah, that's it. That's Anacapa Island. And then over here is Santa Rosa. It's a big island. And actually there's a friend of my friend Chuck Slosberg, who actually lives here. Oh, someone just popped in at the Going Alone site from Hacienda Heights, California. Is it one of you? Welcome. A friend of my friend Chuck, this last summer, got in the water over here and swam out to that island, then around the island to the backside, and then out to that island, and then made a beeline back. Oh, and then there's Ron going alone in from Tel Aviv. I can see you. Welcome, Ron. It took. Is that you, Camry Safe, smiling? Are you the one that just popped in there? Anyway, it took them like over 24 hours to swim all the way around. Ah, okay. Welcome to this site. Hey, if you register at the site, then I'll know it's you when you pop in, and you can subscribe and register. I plan to do a lot more activity. Oh, look at the sun. Oh my gosh, that's such a Southern California sunset. If you register over there, I'll know who you are, and also, you can. There's the book over there, and if anybody wants a copy, just let me know. I'll send you a copy. Just send me an email. You're going to Siberia in 9 days. That's the plan. Yes, Ron. I haven't been to Siberia since November, since starting this job. I basically decided to focus on the work, and I may change my mind yet. It's very important to me that I focus on the job. And hi from Japan. Ingolese. That'll make sense. I get it. I don't know why that took me a while. Happy St. Patty's Day, Kurt. I love your videos. Be safe out there. Bye bye. Bye bye, Brittany. Thanks for stopping by. And I'll say hi to you. Bye bye. Bye bye. And Ingolese. That is a great handle. I can't believe all those. I've never heard anything like that. You're welcome, Wanyabi. Take care. And with that, everybody, I think I'll go ahead and sign off from here. We'll have one last look with the sunset, and then I'm going to go have my fish and chips tonight. I went there last night, and it was closed, so I'm going to go there tonight, treat myself to fish and chips and a beer, and I'm going to continue reading. And I'm going to wish you all well, and maybe I'll see you all here again. And I'll take care, everybody. Take care. That's great. I've been bathed. I want to say hi to you too. Take care, everybody. Have a great evening, and remember, be safe, but not too safe, as I say. Okay, bye bye. How do you do this?